I have to admit, when I first saw the file for this deep dive, I actually thought it was a typo.
I can see why.
I mean, we look at a lot of strange history, but statistically, this just shouldn't exist. You have a machine designed for one thing.
To be infallible.
Exactly, to end a life efficiently, and it fails not once.
Not twice.
But 3 times, all in the span of, what, 20 minutes?
It sounds like an urban legend, doesn't it? I mean, if you wrote this in a movie script, the studio would send it back and say, come on, make it believable.
Right, because in Victorian England, they didn't really do mistakes with this stuff. It was a science.
It was a cold, calculated engineering process. The executioner we're going to talk about, James Barry, he thought of himself as a man of science.
Right, he had formulas for the drop length and all that.
Exactly, based on weight, height. So for the machine to just blink 3 times, it goes beyond a simple malfunction. It becomes, folklore.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the life and the just incredibly stubborn survival of John Henry George Lee.
Better known as John Babbacombe Lee.
Or, even better, the man they could not hang.
It's a title that has stuck for, over a century now? But what I love about this story is that when you peel back the miracle part of it, you find this amazing cross-section of Victorian justice, bad engineering, and a really surprising second act that most people just don't know about.
Oh, that's the part I'm most excited to get to. The where are they now part of this story is just wild.
It is.
But before we get to the gallows, we have to talk about the man himself. Because usually when you hear a story like this, you kind of assume the person was innocent, right?
That's the go-to narrative, isn't it? God saved him because he was innocent.
Yeah. But the reality here is a lot murkier.
Much murkier. To get why he was there in the first place, we have to go back to 1884. We're in Babbacombe Bay near Torquay.
In Devon, right. Beautiful coastal area.
Beautiful, quiet. And John Lee is a 20-year-old footman working for an elderly woman named Emma Keyes.
And this wasn't exactly a happy household, from what I've read.
No, it was tense. Emma Keyes was wealthy, she was religious, very strict, and Lee was. Well, Lee was a bit of a loose cannon.
Okay.
He'd been in the Royal Navy but was discharged, and he had a history of theft. He'd actually done time for stealing silverware from a previous employer.
So he's already got a rap sheet. Not a good look.
Not at all. And then on the morning of November 15th, 1884, the house is found on fire.
And when the smoke clears?
They find Emma Keyes. And it wasn't the fire that killed her. She'd been brutally murdered. Her throat was cut. She had head wounds. It was an incredibly violent attack.
And the police probably didn't have to look too far for a suspect.
They didn't look far at all. Lee was the only male in the house. In 1884, that alone was practically enough to close the case.
But there was more, right?
Oh, yeah. He had an unexplained cut on his arm. He claimed he got it breaking a window to get to the fire, but the glass was found outside the window, not inside.
The physics of broken glass. Always a giveaway.
Always. And then there was motive. Keyes had recently cut his wages, which were already low, and she was threatening to fire him.
So you have a disgruntled employee with a criminal record of violent temper opportunities.
It's an open and shut case for a Victorian jury.
But I have to ask, was there any hard evidence? I mean, no DNA, no fingerprints.
It was entirely circumstantial. Nobody saw him do it. No murder weapon was ever, forensically linked to him. If you tried that case today, a good defense lawyer might get reasonable doubt.
But this was 1884.
This was 1884. You're the help. The mistress is dead. You've got a cut on your arm. You're going down. He was convicted quickly.
Okay. But I think you wanted to flag something here because it kind of changes how we view the whole miracle thing.
Right, yeah. This is really important. In 2021, the BBC has a show, Murder Mystery in My Family.
Oh, I've seen that. They get modern barristers to re-examine old cases.
That's the one. And they looked at all the original evidence for John Lee's case. Their conclusion: the verdict was safe. They believe he almost certainly did it.
So just to be crystal clear for everyone listening, the man we are about to see saved by fate is, in all likelihood, a brutal murderer.
That seems to be the uncomfortable reality, yes.
Which makes what happens next even more baffling.
Completely.
Okay, let's go to the day. February 23rd, 1885. Exeter Prison. The executioner is James Barry. You mentioned he was a pro.
He was far from some hooded thug. James Barry was a celebrity in his own right. He wrote memoirs. He was a businessman. He prided himself on the quote-unquote humane hang.
He was meticulous.
Incredibly. So he gets to Exeter Prison, and he checks the equipment thoroughly. He tests the trapdoor with sandbags that weigh the same as Lee.
And
works perfectly. The doors swing open, the bags drop. He tests it again just to be sure. Perfect.
So the stage is set, it's raining, it's cold. They bring Lee out, he's strapped, the white cap goes over his head, the noose is adjusted.
Yeah.
Barry pulls the lever.
Nothing. The bolt draws back with a thud, but the doors don't fall. They're just stuck. Solid.
Now, in a movie, this is where the crowd gasps and the governor steps in, but that's not what happened, is it?
Not even close. It was just chaos.
Yeah.
The warders are confused. Lee is still standing there, hooded, probably terrified out of his mind. They hustle him off the trapdoor. And then they start doing DIY on the gallows.
You're kidding me. While he's watching.
While he's standing a few feet away, Barry is furious. He's literally stomping on the doors trying to loosen them. You get an axe and a saw.
A saw?
Yes, they are planing down the edges of the wood, thinking maybe the damp weather made the timber swell up.
That is a level of psychological torture I just can't process. You're listening to them saw the machine that's supposed to kill you.
It's horrific. So they think they fixed it. They test it again without Lee on it. The doors fall open. Boom. Works fine.
So they put him back on.
They put him back on. Attempt number 2. Barry pulls the lever.
And stuck. Again?
Again. The doors move, maybe an inch, and then just lock up tight.
At this point, the tension must have been just unbearable.
Oh, absolutely. The prison chaplain was apparently on the verge of fainting. The medical officer is getting visibly agitated. But the law is the law. The warrant says hang the man until dead.
So they're going to try again.
Believe it or not, they try a third time.
3 times.
And the same result. The trapdoor refuses to open when John Lee is standing on it.
So what happens?
Finally, the medical officer just steps in and says, stop. He refuses to let it continue. He effectively overrules everyone. They take a very much alive John Lee back to his cell.
Okay, we have to pause here and get into the how, because a trapdoor is not a complicated machine. It's just hinges and gravity.
Right.
Why did it work for the sandbags but not for John Lee?
This is where the official investigation comes in. The Home Office was, deeply embarrassed by this. So they sent an architect to figure it out.
And what did the architect find?
It all comes down to the drawbar and the frame. See, the gallows had been moved from the prison infirmary to the coach house just for this hanging. And when they reassembled it, the frame was slightly twisted. Just a little out of alignment.
Like when you hang a door badly in your house and it sticks.
Exactly that. It was subtle. So when the drawbar, the metal bolt holding the doors up, was pulled, the hinges were supposed to swing down. But because the frame was warped, the hinges were binding against the frame.
But wait a minute. Why did the sandbags work? They weighed the same as Lee.
That is the million-dollar question. And the best theory is about the difference between live weight and dead weight.
Okay.
A sandbag is just dead weight. It sits in the center of the trapdoor, a compact mass. John Lee was a person. He was standing, straddling the seam between the two doors.
And he was probably rigid with terror.
Tensing every single muscle, pushing back with his feet. The theory is that his specific stance, his rigid posture pushing outward toward the edges, created just enough extra friction against that warped frame to lock the whole mechanism.
So his own fear, the act of him tensing up, might have physically saved his life.
It's very likely. If he'd gone limp or fainted, the weight might have shifted to the center and the doors would have dropped. He literally stood his ground against gravity.
That's just wild. It's just physics, but it feels like something else entirely.
It does.
Now, I know there was another theory, the sabotage theory. That one sounds a lot more exciting.
Oh, it's much more cinematic. This theory came from a writer named Ernest Bowen Rawlins. He claimed that another prisoner, one who helped to build the scaffold, secretly inserted a small wooden wedge into the mechanism.
A wedge, like a doorstop.
Basically, yeah. And the story goes that this prisoner would slip the wedge in only when Lee was on the scaffold and then secretly pull it out when they were testing it.
That sounds incredibly risky. I mean, Barry and the sheriff are standing right there.
And that's why most historians reject it. James Barry was meticulous. The idea that someone could sneak a wedge in and out 3 separate times without being seen, it's highly, highly unlikely.
It's a good story, though.
It's a great story. But the boring truth is probably the right one. It was the banality of bad carpentry that saved him.
So the execution is called off. Lee's back in his cell. What happens legally? Can't they just fix the gallows and try again the next day?
Legally, they could have. The warrant was still valid, but you have to think about the Victorian mindset. They could be brutal, but they were also deeply superstitious and obsessed with public decency.
And 3 failures in a row looks a lot like divine intervention.
Exactly. The news spread like wildfire. The public was already saying it was the hand of God. It would have been a PR nightmare for the government to drag him out a fourth time. It would look like they were fighting God.
So the Home Secretary has to step in?
Sir William Harcourt, yes. He commutes the sentence to life imprisonment. He basically says, look, we tried to kill him, it didn't work, let's just lock him up forever.
And so Lee goes to prison for a long, long time.
22 years. He becomes a model prisoner, apparently, and he keeps petitioning for his release year after year, arguing he already paid for his crime on the scaffold. And eventually, they let him go.
Finally, in 1907, the government gives in. They release him.
Okay, and this is where the story usually ends, right? John Lee was released and faded into obscurity. But that's not what happened at all.
Not even close. This is where the story gets its second wind. For decades, everyone thought he died poor in a workhouse in Tavistock during World War II. It was a neat, tragic ending.
But that was wrong.
Completely wrong. About 20 years ago, a couple of researchers, Holgate and Waugh, really started digging.
And they found out John Lee didn't fade away. He went on tour.
He did. He cashed in on his fame. He was the man they could not hang. He gave lectures, stood on stage, and told his story over and over. He made money. There was even a silent film made about him.
Talk about monetizing your trauma.
You said it. But then around 1911, he does disappear from the British records. And this is where the new research dropped the bombshell.
He didn't die in a workhouse.
He got on a boat.
And where did he go?
The United States. He didn't just visit. He settled.
Let me guess. New York. Los Angeles. Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Get out of here, Milwaukee. Of all the places for a Victorian folk legend to end his days.
He left his wife and kids behind in England, which is a whole other side to his character, and started a completely new life in the American Midwest under the name James Lee.
Did anyone there know who he was?
It seems like almost nobody knew. He worked for an automotive company, lived a quiet life. He was just this old British guy with a past he didn't talk about.
This blows my mind. He's living in Milwaukee through the Roaring '20s, the Great Depression, World War II.
He lived until 1945. He was 80 years old when he died. Think about that. He was born in the age of public hangings, and he died in the age of the atomic bomb.
And they actually found his grave.
They did, in 2009. He's buried in Forest Home Cemetery in Milwaukee, it's confirmed. Yeah. The man who was supposed to die at 20 lived another 60 years because a wooden frame was twisted by a few millimeters.
It really recontextualizes him. He's not just a victim of fate, he's a survivor. And maybe a bit of a con man, too, leaving his family behind to start over.
It definitely complicates the simple folk hero narrative, and yet popular culture still loves that narrative. The band, the men they couldn't hang, the Fairport Convention album, Babbacombe Lee. We just love the story of the guy who beat the system.
Even if the system was trying to punish him for a murder he likely committed.
That's the tension, isn't it? If that trapdoor had opened, John Lee would just be a statistic, a name in a dusty ledger. Because it stuck, he became a legend.
It really brings up an uncomfortable question, and it's what I want to leave our listeners with today. We've spent this whole time fascinated by his escape. We find ourselves rooting for him.
Right. You want him to live.
But why? If he really did kill Emma Keyes, and the evidence suggests he did, why does surviving the punishment somehow absolve the crime in our imagination? Why does a simple mechanical failure feel like a kind of redemption?
That is the ultimate question. Is justice about the process or the outcome? And when the process fails so spectacularly, does the original crime even matter to us anymore?
Something for you to think about next time you have a sticky door in your house. Just remember, that same simple physics saved a man's life.
And sent them to Milwaukee.
And sent him to Milwaukee. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.